Hi all, and welcome to my new video related to Bitcoin education. In this video, we'll discuss about Bitcoin and the monetary policy. As always, the presentation is for educational purpose only, is not a financial advice. Let's see what is the logic of the Bitcoin monetary policy. As you have might heard that we have the halving, meaning that every 4 years, more or less, the amount of Bitcoin given as a reward to the miners every 10 minutes will be cut by half. Between 2009 and 2012, there were 50 Bitcoins every 10 minutes. And every 4 years, it will decrease. So the first 50% of Bitcoin were mined in the first 4 years. Then in the second 4 years between 2013 and 2016, or between end of 2012 and 2016, it was 25%. Then between 2016 2020, 12.5%, and in this period between 2020 2024, it will be 6.25% of all Bitcoin. And also is by coincidence, but also at the moment there are 6.25 Bitcoin mined every 10 minutes. And you can see also here the difference between the total monetary supply and the money supply growth rate annualized. So you can see the trend for total money supply is decreasing, and it's not a curve because it's every 4 years there is a halving. And actually we are about 90.9% of all Bitcoins already mined. While the money supply growth rate annualized, it will decrease. At the moment, the stock to flow is around similar to gold, so 55%. And Bitcoin supply is between 1 and 2%, the monetary supply growth rate. But what will happen in 2024? The stock to flow will be at 120, so meaning the level of stock, it will be 120 times higher than the inflow in a given year, meaning that the money supply growth rate will be less than 1%. So Bitcoin will be the commodity or the good that is will be the most scarce in the world. And in 2140, we will have a stock to flow infinite because no more Bitcoin will be mined and it will be a limited supply. It's the first time for something that represents money that we have absolute scarcity. And as I said in other videos, this is an absolute revolution or an absolute breakthrough in the monetary history. In our history, human beings always have been looked for a commodity to be used as money. The most important thing that it was scarce. Scarce means not how much there was, but it was hard to produce. And if you cannot produce, then it's more because it's limited. Then it's the best form of money as a store of value. Let's now focus on why it is the best monetary policy. Because according to the Austrian School of Economics, that is very different from the Keynes schools of economics that is taught nowadays and is believed by most of the world. The Austrian School of Economics believed in the separation between money and state. So the state should not have the power to print new money. And it means no money printing. And without money printing, there would not have been a crisis like in 1929. Many, they say, one of the issue is that we could not release so much money after the crisis. But in reality, in the 1920s, there was a big expansionary policy. I explain this also in the lectures for regarding to the monetary history and Bitcoin. And this increase of supply of money, like more than 60% in 5 or 6 years, generate a bubble that this bubble exploded with the crisis in 1929. So the biggest cause of the crisis in 1929 was that the government was able to print more money. Second, no fractional reserve banking. At the moment, the bank can keep 10%. They should keep only 10% of the money that they receive. All the other they can create. So, or when they give a loan, only 10% should be backed by actual money. By the rest is printing money. And especially in the last year, now the fractional reserve banking went to zero in US, so they can print money from thin air as there is no tomorrow. And without this, we would not have the crisis like in 2008. Then what the Austrian School of Economics believe, that price will be established by the fluctuation of supply and demand without distortion of a central authority. Because also for the Austrian School of Economics, knowledge is distributed, is by nature distributed. So regardless how smart and how knowledgeable are the people in charge of central planning, they cannot know as much as as the sum of the people who work in that field. So the price of a commodity of a good is better if it is decided by the supply and demand. There is never an equilibrium, as Keynes was saying, or there would be an equilibrium generated, or also by the socialists were saying that we need central planning and generate this equilibrium. The equilibrium is never, there will always be excess of supply and excess of demand, but this supply and demand, they are always fighting each other in order to find the equilibrium. And also interest rate is also decided by supply and demand, and decision will be made by the banks. Some they believe that if someone believes Bitcoin, he thinks that the banks should not exist. That's not true. Bitcoin, at least for my opinion, Bitcoin substitute the central bank and leave and remove the power of the bank of fractional reserve banking. But the role of giving interest rate should remain into the bank. And according to the situation between supply and demand, banks should decide which will be the interest rate. If we have more money available, then the interest rate should decrease. If there is less money available, then interest rate should increase. But the main concept is that the market, according to what the market is behaving, then comes of the decision which will be the price and which will be the interest rate. There should be no decision of central planning. One example is Wikipedia, in the encyclopedia. Also, Microsoft tried to make Encarta in 1990s with the most knowledgeable people, with great manager, well paid, but regardless how much knowledge and how much organized they were, the knowledge was much smaller than the knowledge distributed around the world. With Wikipedia, there are people from all over the world filling with their knowledge. This is a similar example. Then there will be also further, there will be no inflation, and Bitcoin will be money that will appreciate over time. And this is always hard to explain. It's like we should live in a different world. Because if we look for money for store or value, the more the store the value, the better it is. Then inflation should not be considering a good thing, whatever inflation. And inflation is paid by the low and middle income, mostly of the people who live from paycheck to paycheck, and and they don't have assets, they don't have real estate, they don't invest in stocks. So they are completely hit by inflation. So if we have money who appreciate over time, then it will be more equality. And second, no need to choose risk investment to beat inflation. If a person has money that appreciate over time, you don't need to risk or to think that, oh, you need to invest in somewhere else more risky to beat inflation, because there will be not inflation. There will be deflation. And actually, one reason why it should be deflation is that if technology is going always on, is moving on, is increasing, is advancing the technology, and things, we become more productive, things are easier to make the same thing, so the price also should go down. Is the prices are not going down because we have a defected money, we have fiat money. Why we should have better form of money like Bitcoin? I know that it is a lot to understand for a person who lives always and never thought about money. That's why I recommend to study several books on on the history of money and Bitcoin. But if you think in the whole history, the human being always look for the material who is more scarce, who keep the value more and more. And the best will be a money limited and that we cannot produce more. And second, if we technology advance, then prices should go down. And also important, you see, there will be clear rules for future emission of money. So people know how much money will be increased in which year and so on. So it will be easier to forecast how much the money will cost. Easy, not easy, but easier than now. Now we always wait for the Fed if increases or the ECB increases 75 basis points or 50 or 25 or nothing or past years it was removing. This should go. This uncertainty create problems for entrepreneurs because it is very say ambiguous. While clear rules, they have better calculation of investments. And last but not least, more savings. If we live with money appreciate value, people will save more. More savings will bring to more money invested without printing money, and it will be like a new renaissance. To understand it, please look at my videos to understand it better. Look also watch also my videos related to the monetary policy. I made 4 lectures, 6 videos, and also you can read the Bitcoin standard and the fiat standard. Thanks, and see you in one of the nice videos. Bye.